In this video, I'm going to be doing my May 2024 maintenance update for the truck. We'll be discussing the maintenance I performed, any modifications that I did, and the miles that I drove. Before we get too far into this video, obviously I am running Tuska Outdoors' new Hitchhiker as a sleeper setup. This unit is not available to the public yet. I'm actually testing the truck bed version for them. They have 7-foot versions that don't have the side mounting points that you can strap to a trailer. I think there might be some folks running the 7-foot version in their 8-foot bed, but I'm testing this. It's going really well, and they're hoping to bring something to market before the end of the year, but please stay tuned and follow along. We'll be sharing more details as the final design comes into play. There's still a few things we're trying to work out with the mounting, the final height of the Hitchhiker, the door size, and a few other things. All right, maintenance. What did I do in the month of May to keep the truck on the road? May 7th, an oil change, filter change, and grease the front end. I probably should have done a tire rotation. I didn't really have time. So that was at 155,491. And then after that, on the 17th, I did all 3 fuel filters, and that was at around 160, so like 159,457. I'm just looking on my phone at my maintenance list to make sure I have everything. So I've typically been on a every 15,000 mile filter change, so it was every 3rd oil change, and that was when I was doing 5,000 mile oil change intervals. But now that I've increased my oil change interval, I think I'm going to start just doing the fuel filters every oil change, every 10,000. I've heard from a couple of you out there that you like running the 10,000 mile fuel filter changes. And if you do them yourself, they're really not that expensive. I think the Donaldson filter is like 20 bucks and you can get it on Amazon, or like I'll go on like Extreme Performance Diesel and you can get the Motorcraft filters from Extreme Performance Diesel. And those are, I want to say they're like $70. So like for $100, you can change all 3 filters if you have the disaster prevention kit. Now for my oil, I'm still running AMSOIL 5W40 and I'm running the AMSOIL filter and doing that every 10,000. The last piece of maintenance I did this month, or I should say the month of May because it's June now, was I changed both my cold air intake filter and my cabin air filter. The cabin air filter I hadn't had done since, when did I do that last? It was like 2022. So it had been almost 2 years and I'd put probably 80,000 on the truck. I was like, I need to do that. I actually went on Amazon and found one of those. It's just, you know, like a Chinese replacement filter. I didn't really care if it was Motorcraft. This one says it had like charcoal in it. It's supposed to filter better. I don't know if that was the like if that's true and if it actually does a better job. The air smells a lot better now. I just went off of the one on Amazon that fit the Super Duty, that had the best reviews, and just bought that one, and it was, you know, it was like $20. So now for my cold air intake filter, I am running the AFE Power cold air intake, and you might think, well, that's obviously not one of the best ones out there. S&B and Banks both make a filter that is a lot better than that open top one you have from AFE Power, which obviously you're still going to get some warm air because it's open top. It's not completely sealed from the engine compartment, and you would be 100% right. The reason I have that on there is because it actually came with the truck when I bought it. I bought this truck with 49,000 miles, and that filter was already on there, and so I haven't really wanted to spend another $400 or $500 on a new cold air intake when I already have one that does the job. So I just went on XPD and it was like $91 for a replacement filter. And I try to just look at my filter, and when it starts getting a little crusty and like pretty dark, I'll change it. I don't really have an interval. It's mostly based on like the visual look. I probably do it a lot earlier than I would need to, but I just like being on top of that. So those are my maintenance items for the month of May. We did the oil change, we did the fuel filter change, we did cabin air filter and air intake filter. Now, I did not do any modifications outside of installing the Hitchhiker and testing that with Tuska Outdoors. I do have a video coming out in a couple weeks. I'm actually going to be filming a round trip RV transport where I'm taking a trailer all the way up to Maine, and so I will be showing some camping in the Hitchhiker and doing some other stuff, kind of like a day in the life type thing. So be sure you check back for that. But there were no modifications done to the truck. Now, unfortunately, we did have some issues, and I actually became aware of this before my check engine light even came on. The light itself now I had cleared. It only popped the code, and then it like wasn't a lasting issue basically. But the engine code was a P2459, which is a regen frequency code. And so to be honest, I kind of panicked because I was like, wow, I've been doing all this really good maintenance, and you know, typically a regen frequency code, it can be three things. I mean, there's lots of others, but the three main ones are your PCM software is out of date, and so it's causing the truck to regen a lot more frequently than normal. So I was getting regens like every 150, 200 miles, which is not normal. And then the other two things it could be, second thing would be your DPF is just done. It's saturated. It's, you know, it's at the end of its life. You need to replace your DPF. And that was kind of worst case scenario that I went to immediately in my mind. And I was like, wow, like everything that I've done has kind of been in vain. I mean, 160,000 miles out of a DPF, I guess, isn't bad, but like you would hope it would last longer than that with how expensive it is to replace. So with the P2459, I immediately went to the worst case scenario in my mind, but it turns out it's actually the third thing, which is actually the cheapest to fix and one of the easiest things to fix other than just updating your PCM, which is it's the DPF pressure sensor. And the reason we finally came to that, I had talked to PTT a bunch about this, was the truck runs great. There's no hazing from the tailpipe. The motor is running super smooth. All my temperatures are normal. The truck is like in perfect condition engine-wise. Also, there's no excessive wear showing up in my oil testing. Basically, the thing's mint. Now, the only thing we did find in the oil testing was evidence of excessive regens because there was a little bit of extra fuel dilution. Not so much as to cause damage, but you can definitely tell it was like a little bit more than normal. And so the reason it would be the sensor is if the DPF pressure sensor is plugged up, it's not going to be able to get an accurate reading on the DPF pressure. And so it will think the DPF is filling up faster than it needs to, and then it will run regens. And one of the things that was interesting is when the check engine light popped, it was like the truck realized that the DPF was regenning too often, and when the check engine light was on before I cleared it, it actually went back to regenning every 500 to 700 miles. And so then I was like, okay, it has to be either a computer PCM related issue or it has to be a sensor related issue. We tried updating the PCM. I went to see A-Rod and he checked everything and it was all good. And then we also went and, you know, I just explained to him kind of what I was getting for symptoms, and we figured it's a pressure sensor. So I'm actually going to see him soon, and he is going to fix that, and we're going to install a new pressure sensor. Now, contrary to what a lot of people say, the sensors, while they are kind of annoyingly expensive, it's still cheaper than doing away with your emissions system. I think the sensor was like $200, and to install it, I don't know, I think A-Rod said it might be $100 or $200, you know, so I mean, out $300 to replace a sensor and to get the truck back to working order, so not bad. But if you have a code for a P2459 and your truck is on the newer side, it would be one of those three things. Your PCM either needs updated, which there's actually a technical service bulletin for that. Number two, your DPF is just completely full, which is highly unlikely if your truck has less than like 200,000 miles on it. And then number three, you have a sensor that's going bad, and that is most likely the culprit. Not all dealers will know what's going on. You kind of have to find a good one. If you have this issue, I would say just go see PTT, but we're going to hopefully do a video on it that talks more in depth about the issue, what the remedy is, and all that. But anyway, gave me a good scare. It was kind of my first actual like check engine light that I've gotten with the rig, and definitely got me puckered for a little bit, but we're gonna get it sorted and get this thing back ripping mint. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, how many miles did I drive in the month of May? So currently on the odometer, the truck has 162,332. At the time of my last update, I had about 155,495. So I did the calculation on my phone, and I've done in the month of May 6,832 miles. Not my typical. Usually I'm closer to 8 or 10, but we did a little bit fewer loads. I had like the last few weeks of May off. I was spending some time home with my wife, so we didn't really crush as many miles as we had in some of the prior months. I think June is also going to be fairly light, but yeah, there you go, 6,837. And, you know, did a couple maintenance items. I have a ton of maintenance items I actually did in June, which I'll talk about in the next update, but we had a lot of things break and a lot more things need fixed. And so I had my brother Oliver out to help with those. But I really appreciate you watching this video. If you have not yet, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time here on PowerStroke Maintenance. Cheers.